Many people know Stanley for its most recent iteration in the past 5 years, where we truly created the category of hydration. We redefined it, we grew it. Lots of other competitors have come into the space now. We've got an amazing following through that hydration business, but we know that we're so much more than that. That's really the next phase of the brand, is making sure that we prove it out, we diversify our product, we invite new customers into our ecosystem. So that's really where we're at. We're at this moment of evolution for the Stanley brand.
Hello and welcome to the Retail Podcast. It is a Friday afternoon for me and Friday morning for Kate, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. Now, unknowingly, the product that we're going to talk about, or the brand, more importantly, that we're going to talk about in a minute, I've been a fan of for a long, long time. So when I got the opportunity to talk to the brand and the brand person, the chief brand officer, it was something that I jumped to. And so without taking any more time, Kate Ridley, Chief Brand Officer at Stanley 1913, the famous, how do you refer to them? Because it's like you have so many categories that you go across. What's the sort of all-encompassing word for the brand?
Well, that's a good question. We fit into multiple categories, the biggest of which is hydration, but we're in the food and beverage containment industry. Is the technical term, Alex.
I was just going to say the technical term, the food and beverage containment industry. I'm just a fan because I remember to be fair, you must get this all the time. You meet someone and they tell you their first time they came across the brand and you're like, yeah, thanks.
Well, it's, that is something that I absolutely love. That is such a good gauge. People are always asking the question, how do you measure the success of your brand? And there are so many ways you can measure it, but just the people on the street and the stories they tell you about your brand is such a good gauge. And every single person, anyone I say, I work for Stanley, or if they see me holding a Stanley product, there's a very common refrain that they'll say, my grandfather had the green Stanley thermos and we used to go fishing together. And that's such an interesting insight, that the legacy is there, but also you got to break out of it.
I mean, it's so funny that you say the green flask. I watch my son, who's a goalkeeper, on a Saturday morning. He's 9 years old. It gets cold and I was looking for exactly that, a flask that was reliable that I can, go take. But I loved it so much, I ended up buying 3 different flasks from Target. I remember I was in the US and I was like, oh my God, take. Anyway, let's get into this. Kate, why don't you, if you don't mind, just give us an overview of who you are and what you do at Stanley 1913.
Yes, I'm Kate Ridley. I'm the Chief Brand Officer at Stanley 1913. And I've been there for a whopping 3 months. I'm brand new. And I've spent my career being fascinated with brands that exist at the intersection of culture and lifestyle, and predominantly youth culture brands. And it's a privilege to be at Stanley. I oversee all consumer-facing activities. So brand strategy, consumer insights, merchandising, marketing, all of those wonderful areas that I'm very, very passionate about. And we're in a moment of brand evolution. So I'm really excited to share some of those exciting plans with you.
That's fantastic. It's really interesting how Stanley 1913 sort of positions itself as a brand with heritage, not a heritage brand.
Yeah.
And I was just curious how you balance the rich legacy that you have with sort of staying innovative and relevant at the same time, which it sounds like you do.
Yes, I mean, that's the balance, right? It's an absolute privilege and an honor to work for a brand that has been a leader in food and beverage containment since 1913. And, the founder of Stanley was the first person who invented and patented double-walled steel vacuum beverage containment.
Wow.
And that's a privilege. It's also an amazing challenge to make sure that you honor that legacy and all of the things that come with it, but that you take the brand into the future and make sure that it's modern, it's vibrant, and most importantly, that it's relevant. That's the biggest challenge that we have. I think Stanley, many people know Stanley for its most recent iteration in the past 5 years, where we truly created the category of hydration. We redefined it, we grew it. Lots of other competitors have come into the space now. We've got an amazing following through that hydration business, but we know that we're so much more than that. That's really the next phase of the brand, is making sure that we prove it out, we diversify our product, we invite new customers into our ecosystem. So that's really where we're at. We're at this moment of evolution for the Stanley brand.
And that's really interesting, because the sort of Stanley 1913 journey that I imagined was where, in the different, it's like a Taylor Swift, the different eras of her tour, almost, although no direct correlation there, but the eras that you go through in terms of from work hydration to outdoors to all of these sort of smaller changes in consumer behaviors. How do you manage that? How do you sort of connect with those consumers, given there are so many evolving eras?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, it's about knowing what consumers want, what they're doing, and making sure that we drive everything through insight. So if I take that, the first era that you mentioned in terms of helping Americans predominantly go to work, there just weren't solutions for people to have coffee, water, food while they're at work. So that's the very, very earliest era. And the second era, when people started exploring the outdoors more, Stanley was there, making sure that they had products that could facilitate that. And then seeing this like health and wellness trend really evolve over the past, let's call it 15 years, but specifically in the past 5 years, where predominantly young women were absolutely leaning into health, longevity, wellness, and hydration was a huge part of that. And Stanley bought a solution that allowed for self-expression, was the absolute pinnacle of quality in hydration products. And it was born out of insights. It was actually born out of insights of a group of women in Utah who were really adopting the Quencher as their hydration solution, and it just exploded from there. So the next era also has to be based on insights of what people want and how they're living their lives. And a huge area for us, a huge area of investment is around sport. That's only one area, there's many, but sport is a big area that we're focused on at the moment, that we have fantastic, innovative solutions for athletes to be at their best. And so that's a big focus for 2025.
I'm curious in terms of the relationship that you've sort of mentioned those brands, but I think, your experience with global brands like Adidas, Allbirds, how much of that has influenced your approach to Stanley 1913's direct-to-consumer partner growth?
Yeah, I mean, I came up at Adidas. I was extremely privileged to spend more than 20 years of my career there. And for me, it's probably the best example globally of a heritage brand that stays relevant.
Yeah.
And so those learnings of how to protect your brand, respect the legacy, and keep it intact as you move the brand forward and keep it relevant, that's definitely informed the way that what I'm bringing to Stanley and how I think about that balance between heritage and modernity and relevance. I would say also my time at Allbirds was just an amazing education in sustainability and purpose marketing. And sustainability is absolutely at the heart of Stanley's values and our commitment. So I feel like I've got some good groundwork to bring to the mix at Stanley.
I think, it's just, I'm a big believer in fate, and as fate would have it, today's shows that we've been recording, or yesterday's shows for today, in the USA, in the UK, in Asia Pacific, one of the brands that I was waxing lyrical on, whose masterclass in how to stay relevant, was Adidas. And the way that in the US, they've just launched this campaign with superstar trainers, and they've got a whole YouTube, Samuel L. Jackson, Missy Elliott, and basketball, skateball. So they've got these 7 huge media stars that they've created engagement on. But then my point was, look at how that shifts to the UK, where Oasis has staged their 30-year. So Oasis is a sort of rock and roll band in the UK,
Yeah.
really famous, two brothers. But how Adidas is at the heart of their. And I know this isn't about Adidas, but it's just when you were talking, I was like, yeah, I get it. In terms of, in one country, you're this to your consumer, and in
Yeah,
another country, you're something else. Maintaining
totally.
that relevance.
Yeah, and something that I deeply admire and that I think is part of our strategic imperative at Stanley is around authentic cultural partnerships. And it's definitely something that I learned during my time at Addy. And we have a really fantastic portfolio of partners at Stanley. And I just want to dwell for a moment on the word authentic, which is that, it's an overused word, I would say, in brand management. But
Yeah.
at the heart of it, it means we work with people that are true fans of Stanley, that use the product, that it can't come across anymore, as as a pay to play model, because consumers, they smell that out. It feels bad. It's like the whole model is shifting. The whole model of influencers, celebrities, athletes, it's shifting, and it has to have depth to it or people just don't buy into it. And so in the realm, we focus on playing fields, and one of them is around sport and fitness, another one is around music and entertainment, another one around style and fashion. And we've had really phenomenal success in bringing that like authenticity to life. We had a recent collaboration that launched with Post Malone. And the reason that it came about is that, if you know him, I mean, he's
Yeah,
very
I do know him.
yes, but he always has a beverage in his hand.
Always. Yeah.
He is a huge fan. He goes everywhere with coolers. His team use coolers, flasks, shot glasses, pint glasses. Like, they use them every single day. And he is a Stanley fan. He's an outdoors man. He grew up using Stanley products. And that was the sort of root of our partnership together. And it was hugely successful. We built great storytelling, innovative product. The second partnership that I feel so excited about is our ongoing partnership with Leo Messi. And we launched the first iteration of that in 2024. And the way that that partnership came about is that Messi has been using Stanley Mate products since he was a child. And we brought that story to life through the ritual of him, making and enjoying mate. And so I think that that's something that I learned at Addy. I really deeply believe in it, that this kind of pay to play model of partnerships it's not the path to success. And so I feel at Stanley that authentic cultural connection is coming through a lot of those partnerships really well.
One of the things that I've been talking about this week is how the cool girl era, in some circles, they're talking about that coming to an end, in the sense that there's sort of lifestyle drinks, but the messy girl era is now stepping in, where it's more real. And, Post Malone to me is that sort of, you don't get any realer than Post, but having both eras need some form of device to carry your beverage of choice in there, which obviously I think presents opportunities and challenges when I think about the cultural elements that you've just highlighted. There are the opportunities and there are challenges. How do you anticipate this? What do you do to anticipate those types of opportunities and challenges?
I think anticipating thinking about the way that consumers are going to respond to some of those cultural partnerships that you put forward is really important. And you just mentioned the fine balance of having a global approach, but ensuring that you also have local relevance.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that I think about a lot in terms of anticipating reach and connection on a global scale, but ensuring that there is like real nuances at the local or regional level. And we spend a lot of time thinking about that. And there's different ways that you can approach it. We think about, okay, there's nobody better than Leo Messi. He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
His face, his number, his kit, everything about him is recognizable globally. The way that people recognize and connect is different. So in the first iteration of product that we launched in December of 24, the product was pink. And pink is a color that is like so identifiable with Messi because of Miami. And interestingly, the color didn't resonate in the same way in Europe that it did in the US.
Yeah.
And so we evolved, we quickly learned from it. It was still successful, but it was just a different level of connection. And we learned from it and we evolved, anticipated that we need to make an adjustment so that it is truly locally relevant in different markets. And so the Striker Blue collection that we're bringing, that's going to launch on July 14th, is adjusted so that there's like a different connection of that Argentinian blue color with consumers who are in Europe, who are in Latin America, who are in Asia Pacific. And we're just evolving and adjusting the campaign and the product assortment to make sure that it's relevant. So I think like that we can't anticipate everything, but really trying to think through how do we scale this amazing legacy brand? How do we scale it globally, but make sure that there's regional connectivity?
In terms of when you think about innovation, sustainability, that's so pivotal to sort of today's market, and then how Stanley 1913 is sort of integrating those priorities into product development, which is almost what you're saying about the colors, about the themes that you're going to market with in the different markets. What's the impact on brand storytelling? How do you bring that to life then?
Well, I think the vision and the values of Stanley are very powerful, and the reason why I joined. The vision of Stanley to fuel the human experience, it extends into a much broader context of sustainability and social impact. And it's a deep commitment of the organization. So much so, Alex, that I've seen, any product, we had a product that had like a tiny emblem on it that did not meet the BPA standards. And it was no question. There was a lot of units, but immediately we made the decision, no, we're not going to sell it. We're going to change it. And that type of organizational commitment to me is like, that's where I want to be. I want to be with an organization and a brand that lives true to its values.
Yeah.
The trick is like, how do we communicate that? How do we bring people into that? How do we shine a light on it without, there's so many potential pitfalls around sustainability in consumer brand management at the moment. And so I don't even think we're really at the starting line in terms of how we storytell around sustainability, because we have a real commitment to, first we have to do it and then we can talk about it. So once we have, gone to the very, very end of ensuring all of our products are created with recycled steel, which we do, once we've gone to the end of understanding how we can be a part of reducing microplastics, then we shine a light on it and we talk about it. Something that I learned from Allbirds that I really hope to embody at Stanley 1913 is people, the world is a tough place right now. There are so many macro factors that make it pretty tough to like bring joy into the equation. And sustainability can feel like a very heavy topic. And the goal that we have is like, let's not make it too heavy. Let's make it easy to understand, accessible for consumers. Let's provide them with the maximum amount of transparency about our products and traceability. And I think that's really the goal for us in terms of sustainability, is like, how do we make it accessible? How do we not make it too heavy? And how do we absolutely live true to the commitments that we have and make sure that we do it and then we talk about it?
One of the massive trends that I've seen, and I apologize for not knowing the answer to this. I'm just looking at Stanley brand 1913 followers on TikTok. You've got 1.5 million followers. Are you on TikTok? Like, how do these new digital touch points or digital channels play into your brand management?
Yeah, I mean, digital commerce is like, it's critical. It's where people are. We are on TikTok and TikTok Shop, not in all markets though, at the moment. So predominantly focused on the US, and it's we have to be there because, so you just mentioned a statistic around how many followers we have. If you search hashtag Stanley Cup, there's over
billions.
there's over 1 billion mentions.
Yeah, I thought so.
And
One of your videos, and it's the guy,
yeah,
the green flask that I've got, it's got something like
yeah,
456,000
it's
engagements.
it's real, you know, and it's like what blows my mind is that, you know, we talked about the terminology of the industry around food and beverage containment. That doesn't
Yeah.
sound extremely sexy. It doesn't sound like something that's gonna like super entertain you. And the reality is these amazing quality products are also tools of self-expression. They're ways people identify, you know, like the Olivia Rodrigo collaboration that we have. Her fans want that product immediately so that they can showcase. Messi fans, they want that product immediately so they can showcase what they believe in. And digital commerce is the place where that transaction can happen seamlessly, immediately, where you can identify and find what you follow, what represents your identity, and immediately transact and have the product in your hand shortly after that gives you that satisfaction, you know? So we've had some really great success with TikTok Shop. We plan to go much further in terms of digital commerce. So there's a lot more coming. We have an amazing ecosystem that will continue to roll out.
Is that
Yes,
as it's only 1913 direct?
correct.
Got you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Final couple of questions, and then I'll let you get on with your day. If you could go back to a younger self and give some advice to this budding brand officer, chief brand officer that you will be in the future, what would be that one piece of advice you'd go and tell your younger self?
Oh, it's always trust your intuition. It took me way too long. It took me way too long to understand that my intuition was like, you know, 95% right. And I think you know, we're in a world, I studied banking and finance. You come up in a world where data is everything. You have to have a proof point for everything. And more often than not, my gut knows before my head knows. And so I would encourage myself to like listen more carefully to your intuition, trust it, and run with it.
And are you still, is that still how you, is that play a part in your today life as well? As in, like,
Absolutely.
and what's that one question that I should have asked you that I didn't?
I mean, there's a lot of attention in the industry at the moment on hydration trends, just because so many competitors have come into the space.
Yeah.
And so it's usual that I would get a question about, you know, growth trends. And that's a question that I feel extremely comfortable with just because
Let's go for it. I love it.
you know,
Ask the
I,
question now.
well, because you know, other industries and segments that I've worked in, you're normally looking at a CAGR that's around 10%, let's say 5 to 10% in consumer goods. And unless you're a breakout brand, and I'm just so blown away by the fact that the Stanley CAGR in the hydration area has been since 2021 every single year 116%, right?
Yeah. Wow.
It's amazing. And so when you ask me questions like, how do you anticipate opportunities and challenges?
It's like,
How do I build the infrastructure and the culture to keep up with that level of demand and growth and opportunity is, yeah, it's a new challenge that I am just like so stoked about.
okay, that's fantastic. So listen, I said I'll be respectful to your time. We're at the allotted time. I will, just so you know, I will post a picture of my 2 Stanley products
Oh,
that I've had, because I think there's another thing that we didn't talk about, but I'll just quickly mention. For me, sustainability about quality products that last, and so what you're looking for, especially in consumer products, are those products that stand the test of time, and that for me is what Stanley has, you know, embodied over the years, and hence why I'm a big fan of my little
oh,
flask and what the journey that they've gone on with me.
the quality is undeniable. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, which I think people, with all the new entrants into the market, people learn the hard way that not all water containers, I forget the term, they're not all made equally, which I think
No,
some people sort of think, well, they're all the same. And you're like, well, no, not really. But anyway, on that
such a
Kate,
pleasure
thank
to
you
meet
so
you,
much.
Alex.
Lovely to meet you.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks.